All right, ladies, welcome to this episode of the She Is Extraordinary podcast. I'm here with a friend of mine who has a unique business. I interview a lot of coaches, a lot of kind of expert based. And today I'm sitting down with my friend, Kim Edwards. She's the owner and founder of Jkce Designs, which is an online jewelry store on Etsy and elsewhere. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Yes. And for those that are going to be watching us on YouTube, you look so pretty. That's the thing about podcasts. You just hear it. You don't get to see it. So tune into my YouTube channel for that. Okay. So I got the opportunity to chat with you. Gosh, it feels like forever ago. It might have even been end of 2019. I'm not sure, but I was so impressed with what you've been able to do on your Etsy shop. So can you tell us about Jkce Designs and just kind of a background on you and how you came to get involved in that business?
Sure. Well, I'm a wife and a mom, and I started my Etsy shop. It's been close to 7 years ago now. Just because I enjoyed making beaded jewelry as a hobby, and I thought it would be a neat way to sell a few pieces to make some more money to buy some more supplies. So I started making it with beaded jewelry, and what I would use was typically broken pieces, rejected pieces. I got stuff from estate sales, from family members, from thrift shops, everywhere. And the point I wanted to make with my jewelry was that no matter how broken and rejected we feel as individuals, that God can turn us into something beautiful and turn our lives into something beautiful. So I would put a cross charm on all of my pieces. So I was on Etsy about 6 months before I ever made my first sale. And honestly, the beaded sales didn't go over that well. But I started getting some custom requests for different pieces, and my niece reached out to me and asked me about doing some mustard seed pieces for her volleyball team. She wanted to share her faith with them. So I made that, and I decided, why not list it on my shop and see how it went? And that just kind of took my shop in a whole different direction. So I started making a lot of mustard seed pieces. I wear one myself. And then each piece comes with a card with the scripture on it so that people can give it as gifts. They can share their faith that way. And so my shop pivoted a little bit at that point, and I went to more of scripture pieces, motivational pieces. So now it's faith and motivational based jewelry and accessories. And I'm on Etsy, on Amazon, and then I have a separate platform myself now.
Okay, awesome. What a story. And I love, isn't it so neat how your business sometimes makes that pivot or makes that change, and you start something and you know this is what, you start something and you know this is what God wants you to do, but then he gives you more clarity. And I know that's happened for me in my business as well.
Exactly.
So yeah. I'm always curious. Can you tell us?
Exactly. And that was the point.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, wanting to share, make pieces where people. Yeah, I wanted to make pieces where people could share their faith. And so what I envisioned to begin with was probably not exactly what God wanted me to do, and that's where, as you said, He has refined His purpose for me through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. Because I love that original message. I love that original thought. I am broken. Yes. We as humans are broken. So we want to, it's kind of like ashes to beauty, right? So I love that. I love that. And ladies, as you're listening, there may be a bit of a delay because of the beautiful internet, but thank you for your patience with that. All right. So listen, I was always curious, how did that name come to be, Jkce Designs?
Well, actually, my husband's name is Jay, my name is Kim, and my son's name is Cade, and our last name is Edwards. So that it's the initials because my family is my life, and I want to share my life with them, share my faith with them, and so that's where it came from.
That is awesome. Okay, well, before we came on, I checked out your Etsy store, and you recorded well over 20,000 sales. That's like
Yes.
insane. So for those listening that also have an Etsy shop, may or may not be jewelry, but can you give us some tips of how you were able to grow your business? And 7 years, that's not a short amount of time, but yet that number of sales and the revenue you're generating, that is pretty amazing. And I would say less than 1% actually get there. So I'd love to hear some of your tips.
Sure. I mean, when selling online, as with any business, and I know you've mentioned this in several of your training sessions, is finding your target market and knowing who you are reaching out to. And so online, the SEO, the search engine optimization is key. Know what your customer is looking for, how to title it, how to put the right tags in there, so that when they go online, whether it's to Google or Yahoo or actually to Etsy itself, and put in a term, your business is presented to them.
That's awesome. Can you give us just an example? Because I have a whole episode about SEO, but I only know enough to be dangerous because I'm not the one actually doing that in the business. I don't know if you are, but if you have that knowledge, would you give us an example or two for that?
Well, I mean, one thing you can do is, so for example, faith gifts. If that's something that I want to do, I can put that in. I can use that as one of my tags, but I also may want to put in, if I'm doing a mustard seed piece, I may want to put in Matthew 17:21. So I can put in different tags depending on what they might want to look for. The trick is keeping them broad enough without being too broad, so that you don't get lost in the shuffle. And I've done several sessions with different advertising folks with Amazon and with Facebook advertising. And that's great. You see, oh, I'm reaching an audience of 20 million people. That's wonderful. But it may not be, because all 20 million people are not your target market. So it's truly that funnel and getting down to the ones that, as you said, that are your target market. So it's being broad enough without being too broad. And that's hard to do, but sometimes it just takes some work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure like anything else, it takes time to test it and see what works, refine, and all that. It's the normal entrepreneurial stuff, right?
And exactly. And so even with some of my online pieces, I may list them 2 or 3 times with different keywords, different titles, maybe even different pictures, to see which one garners the most attention, which one's getting the most clicks, the most views. And then that information helps me with the next one, so that I can continue to, and things change over time. You know, what customers are searching for, how they're getting information. You can't list something and leave it out there for 7 years. Just with any business, you've got to grow. You got to adjust and adapt.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you just mentioned that you have consulted with advertising experts, and I'm curious, what advertising do you do now or then? Like, does it look different, kind of how you are strategically looking to grow the business?
Yeah, Etsy has its own advertising, and then it has Google advertising, and you can choose whether or not you participate. I do participate, and I've had good results with it. I've done some Facebook ads. Sometimes you got to make sure that those are set up properly, or otherwise it's kind of the spray and pray. You know, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads that, as I said, aren't reaching your target market, so they're not doing anything for you. And in the past, I've overspent on advertising that I didn't see the results. And that's one of the reasons that I reached out to them for some guidance. And they've been very, very helpful with both the Google ads or Microsoft ads, as well as the Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's cool. So I don't want to ask you necessarily how much you spend on that, but I'm curious, what are your top 3 marketing strategies to get more eyes on your Etsy shop? And maybe it includes the ads or the SEO that we've already talked about.
Yes, those would definitely be two of the top ones. I try to do, try to keep my Facebook shop active, and that points people to my Etsy shop. I don't just sell on Facebook. I sell through Facebook to Etsy. So I will do that. It's being active in the market. It's finding placements. I've reached out and collaborated with some subscription box people. So I have to sell to them at wholesale, of course, but that gets my business and my product in the hands of many people. And then I've generated additional revenue from there as well. So because anytime you can get your name out there and get people to go search for your name online, then it opens a whole new avenue for you.
I love it. I love it. So for those that haven't done collaboration, I know from talking to ladies, sometimes they're hesitant and they're like, oh, am I ready to reach out to these other people that I'd love to collaborate with? What insight or advice do you have for that woman?
Just do it. Because if you don't do it, then you're never going to get there. And a lot of people are going to tell you no along the way. And it may be nothing personal. It may just be where they are in their business. It may be just not the right time. So pick up the phone and ask, or send them an email and ask. And that's all you can do, because if you don't take that first step, you're never going to get there. So, and for me, I'll be honest, you and I have talked in the past about looking for opportunities for larger retail establishments. And I've been hesitant to do that on occasion, but it's a matter of just doing it and getting out there and putting your feet out there, putting your emotions on the line, I guess, to be rejected. But it happens. And, if you're not rejected and have an opportunity to go again, you're never going to get stronger.
Yeah. And you don't have to know the exact thing to say. And I always say this because there is no one perfect script or one perfect phrase that's going to make you win every time. So I love what you've just said, that just do it. And when you fail, great. You're one step closer to success, because how many examples, right? How many examples, Thomas Edison had how many mistakes or fails until he figured out the light bulb. So that's beautiful, Kim. Thank you for that. And I think that the more I study business and the more I work with ladies, I see that the only reason that any of us don't get to where we want to go, it's because we're playing small. So I want to land on that for just a second.
Right.
Did you at any point, now you're a well-tenured, business owner at this point, but talk to us about your mindset and what mind blocks or beliefs you had to overcome.
Well, I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, once I got set up my Etsy shop, it was over 6 months before I got my first sale. I've seen a lot of people in different groups say, oh, I've been open a month, nobody's interested in my products, I'm just going to close. If I had closed in the first 3 months or 6 months or whatever, I would have never gotten there. So I got that first sale. And then my first thought is, oh no, what if they get it and they don't like it? Then, I'm going to be so disappointed. And it happens. I mean, I listened to something the other day that said, if you are afraid of a negative feedback, go and look at your favorite book or your favorite movie. There's always somebody that's going to have not liked it. It could be the bestseller that's out there. So we can't let someone else's opinion, maybe it just wasn't what they were looking for at the moment. And so there are a lot of times that I've got that first negative feedback. I could have said, oh, no, this is not for me, I'm going to stop selling. But you can't do that. You've got to overcome those and move on, and sometimes learn from them. Sometimes the negative feedback is accurate, and what can I do to improve?
Great. So what do you think it was in you, Kim, that when month 1, month 2, month 3, when you weren't getting sales, what is it that kept you going?
Well, I loved the jewelry. So that was it. I mean, it was fun for me. It was a hobby to begin with of making the jewelry. And it was also the feeling in me that it was a message from God that this is what I need to do. I need to be able to do something where I can share my faith and where I can help other people share their faith as well. So, that it was that knowledge, that foundation in my faith that I guess, kept me going.
That's great. And you're right. I mean, even though you said it was a hobby, you had that level of commitment. Right. And you decided this is what I'm doing because God has called me to this. And I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, I imagine you kind of have those doubts where you're like, gosh, is this really what I should be doing? And, but talk us through that, because you know what? I think that we can't emphasize that everybody struggles with this enough. Because I think it's so easy that we can compare ourselves, right? We compare ourselves and we say, oh, look at her.
Right.
She had an overnight success, and they don't realize she's been doing this for 2, 3, 4 years. Right. So.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and every step along the way, it is easy to question it. And the devil makes us question ourselves a lot of times. And sometimes it's easy to say, okay, well, I give up because it's too hard. But when we know this is what we're called to do, you just keep moving forward. And, you think about all the people in the Bible that were persecuted along the way, and they didn't give up, and we can't either. And it may not be persecution. It may just be life. We all face difficulties at points A to Z. So it is knowing our faith. Sometimes it is just taking a moment to take a deep breath and walk outside and say, okay, what's next? And pray.
Yes. I mean, I shared with my ladies inside the academy just this week in our weekly group coaching. I said, you know what? Don't think that I wake up 1,000% motivated every day, because some days it's perfectly sunny, or for example, and I'll say, I wish I could go to the beach today. Or I'm just not feeling it, So, ladies, if you are having a down day today, just know it's okay. Give yourself grace. And if today's a day of rest, then enjoy the rest and pick it up again tomorrow. Right. Anything to add on that, Kim, before we move to something else?
No, absolutely agree. You have to take care of yourself, and you have to pour into yourself before you can fill yourself up to pour out to others. So, it is taking that time. It is self-care. It's praying. It's spending time alone with God, that sometimes that you just need a few days of that to rejuvenate and move forward.
Right. And to hear from him. Okay, you're over here, but I want you over there. Yeah. I love when he downloads what I should be doing. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, your business obviously is super thriving. You're multi-six figures. You had a beautiful year in 2020. Congratulations for that. I want to talk a little bit about your strategy for staying in touch with past clients.
Yeah, so I'm still working on that, honestly, and expanding. So I did set up my own shop, so I'm on my own platform on Shopify now as well, where I gather their email information, ask if they would like to be kept in touch with from the shop. When we have new listings, we can send out an email. So my goal is to even grow that, to do a weekly email of where our new items are, what our discounts are. So that's, the constant communication. You don't ever want to bombard people. You don't want it to become a spam email. You want it to have value. So that's what we're working on now through that shop is being able to gather the customer emails, have them sign up for updates, and doing that. And then, of course, through social media, Instagram and Facebook are my primary social media outlets at this point. I've also joined Clubhouse. So looking into how I can use that to also stay in touch and have the information about my business get out there.
Wow. I love it. I love that you're so forward thinking. And, as you were talking, especially with the newsletter, and now that you mentioned Clubhouse, I'm thinking collaborations would be beautiful. And right now you're going to be talking to thousands of ladies through this podcast, and then countless others on the YouTube channel and other places where I put it out there. So I'm going to allow you to make a pitch. Like, do you think that it would be beneficial and valuable for your clients to possibly hear from certain types of women with other businesses in your newsletter? And I don't mean to like push that on you, but I'm curious, what type of other business owners would you possibly be interested in collaborating with?
Sure. Yeah. And I've actually done some collaboration with other business owners. I've done some with some authors that wanted to include bookmarks with their books. So anything like that, any faith and motivational type businesses, definitely would want to work with, want to be able to share and collaborate with. A lot of even direct sales ladies that do things that way have used some of my items as motivational pieces for their downline, so I've worked with a lot of different business owners in that way. So I'm always looking for opportunities to make those connections and find a mutually beneficial relationship with other business owners.
That's great. Okay, ladies. So if that's you, by the end, I will tell you how to reach out to Kim, but I have just another subject area I wanted to go to before we get off. And that is, you have a very thriving business. So there's no way you're doing this alone. So can you speak to the development of your team? When did you bring on help, and what type of help were they doing, and kind of take us through that progression?
Well, honestly, right now, most of my help is family. And about 3 years ago at Christmas, when I started getting 100 orders a day, was when I realized I've got to have some help. So that has been most of it now. Some, different people along the way, whether it's putting labels on boxes, helping. I still make all of the jewelry myself, but there are a lot of other pieces of either, packaging the packages when they get ready to go out, putting labels on boxes, labels on the bags that they go in. So that's where most of the help is now. As we continue to grow, it will probably expand more. I've actually purchased an adjacent property here to our house that I can expand to when that time comes, hopefully sooner rather than later. But there's always places where you can have people help you, and don't be afraid to ask for help. That was, when I first started, it was like, oh no, I've got to do it all myself. I've got to be in control of every piece of it. Having that help is very mentally satisfying, if nothing else.
Yeah. And, I smiled when you say that, because I have yet to meet a woman, myself included, who didn't have that thought. I need to do it. It would be great to have help, but we think they couldn't do it like I do. So instead, I know earlier on in my business, I'm like, I can do this, I can do that. Yeah, you can, but you shouldn't, so. All right.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this.
I mean, it's the question you have to ask yourself when you're in that position is the value of your time. Is my time most valuable making sure that label is exactly straight on that box, or is it valuable in making another piece of jewelry? And that's where, if you really want to grow your business, that's what you have to look at, is the value of your time.
Yes. And inside the academy and with my one-on-one clients, we do this exercise. We look at time spent working and your hourly rate. We never charge our hourly rate. Right. The value is not by the hour, but it gives you in quick form, you can see what are you worth an hour, which a lot of times it's too small. So then I'm like, do you see, this is why you shouldn't be doing A, B, and C, because your time is worth like $300, $400, $500 an hour, not 75, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Love it. Well, you mentioned something, and I wasn't going to ask about this, but I want to add it. Inventory. As you get supplies, and gosh, I can't believe you make every piece of jewelry. That's insanely wonderful and time consuming, and it shows your love for what you do. But talk us through in the beginning days of your inventory and how that's evolved over time.
Well, this is not exactly jewelry inventory, but I can give you an example of something that I always get a kick out of. When I first bought my jewelry boxes, I would go to Walmart and buy the little 6-pack, and I'd buy, one pack at a time. And I can still distinctly remember the day that I ordered 100 boxes at a time. And I thought, am I wasting this money? Will I ever use 100 boxes? And now, I order thousands at a time. So it's, when you're starting a business, you have to be money conscious. So you don't want to build up a lot of inventory that you don't know if you're going to use. So what I will do is, I have several different bookmark options and keychain options. When I introduce something new, I will start with a smaller number. When I know that those are going to be popular, then I'll buy it in a larger quantity. I can get it much cheaper when I buy in a larger quantity. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know if it's going to be successful, there's no need, putting out a lot of money up front. So anytime you start a small business, that's something you've got to consider is the popularity of your item and what your sunk costs are. Because if I spend, $1,000 on stocking up on supplies and I sell 5 of them, then I'm not being profitable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious, how often do you look at your numbers then? How often do you look at what's selling and also your profit margins, things like that?
Well, I pretty much look at it on a monthly basis for sure. As far as where I'm going compared to prior years and how my business is growing, I do that weekly. I'll look at it on a week by week basis. And you mentioned 2020. 2020 for all online sellers, for most online sellers, I should say, was a outstanding year because people weren't going to stores. So a lot of online sellers and some of the different groups that I'm in are now thinking, oh, well, what's wrong with my business? I'm not making sales. My sales are down from last year. But we're in a different world. So what you have to do is, you can look back to 2020, but you also have to look back to 2019, the last time we had a normal year when people were actually out buying. So comparison is great, growth is great, but you've also got to keep in mind what you're looking at, what you're comparing to, what was going on in that time frame. So I do check those growth numbers weekly. I also cost of metals are going up. So I've had to reevaluate my pricing. Is my profit margin high enough based on what I'm, being charged for my supplies? So, that is something that's pretty much a constant. It's not daily, but it is something you have to be aware of as markets change.
Mm-hmm. Was that difficult for you in the beginning when you're doing all the things and then you're like, oh gosh, I better check the books and see kind of how we're doing?
Exactly. Yes. And when I first started, like I said, the pieces that I was selling, I wanted to do it to be able to buy more products, to sell more. So, I have a degree in finance. So that's actually my background anyway. So that kind of just comes natural to me. But you still, you have to evaluate that. And the other piece is when I'm working with a lot of these gift boxes that I mentioned, these subscription companies. And of course, as I said, have to sell at a discount to those. That's something I have a spreadsheet that I keep up with all of my products. So I can know where my suppliers are, what the cost is, what my time is to make each of those products. So I can take all of that into account. And no, when I first started out, that's not something I did. It is definitely something that evolved over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Time's running out. What is the biggest mistake you've made and you wish you knew it way back in the beginning?
I would mention the advertising early on. And I think that's one of my biggest mistakes that I've made as far as costing me money. I would just try to do Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, all of them at one time and spend a lot of time on it, but then also a lot of money on the ads that weren't very effective. So, that's one of the reasons, as I mentioned before, that I stepped back and took some time to learn myself how to properly do that. So, sometimes it's easy just to throw good money after bad, versus actually spending some time learning how to do it right. So that's been my biggest mistake, is the advertising side of it and learning how to do that effectively.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And now, no doubt, you have such a loyal following that I would think, yes, we still want to advertise and be out there, but there's ways to do it other than like conventional advertising. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're getting near the end. So here is my last question for you. And that is, this is called the She is Extraordinary podcast. And I would love for you, Kim, to share with our listeners an extraordinary woman in your life and tell us what makes her extraordinary.
I have to say my mom. And the reason I thought about this when I was talking with someone a few weeks ago for Mother's Day. My mom is very much a homebody. She lives within 50 yards of where she grew up. But when I was 15, she took me to the airport, put me on a plane by myself to Washington, D.C. for a trip that I had earned in high school. And she told me years later that she sat in that airport and cried for about 2 hours after she put me on the plane, because it was so uncomfortable and different for her. And, but she knew that was the person I was, that I had to fly myself. And as a parent now of a almost 15-year-old boy, I can see exactly how difficult that was. So, she let me be who I am and who God wanted me to be, instead of trying to make me who she wanted me to be or who she was. So my mom definitely would be, she's always been, I guess, my biggest supporter and my biggest fan.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And mom, there's just something about moms. I would say 60 to 70% of the women that come on and I ask that question, that's their answer. All right. Well, Kim, it has been such an amazing episode. And like I say, it's the first of its kind. So thank you for all of your wisdom that you shared. So how can our listeners, absolutely, how can our listeners best reach out to you?
Yes, you can reach me at jkcedesigns@gmail.com. That's my email, or 334-232-9580 is my business phone. So I'd be happy to collaborate with anyone that's out there. And of course, if you want to just purchase something, you can go to jkcedesigns.com, and I'd be happy to work with you and hear your story and how my jewelry impacts your life.
Excellent. How about a social? What's your handle on social so we can find you there as well?
It's Jkce Designs on Facebook, on Clubhouse, and on Instagram.
Okay, awesome.
So any of the social media sites.
Awesome. Well, Kim, thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom. Like I said, it's just been a wonderful episode. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Great talking with you.
All right. You're so welcome. And ladies, if you've enjoyed this episode, would you please take a moment, subscribe so you don't miss another one, leave a rating and a review, because your feedback means the world. We will see you next time. Thanks again for listening.